Hey everyone, guys, today I wanted to do a how to care video on the Epipremnum Pinnatum, which is this plant that I have right here. Now, he's going to be a little bit hard to fit on screen at the same time, so you might just have to bear with either me holding him up like this, or I'll put in some footage of the actual plant, but he's actually a little bit hard to put in. Oh, there we go. A little bit hard to capture all of him on screen. This guy is an impressive 2 meters long. I think he's 2 meters and 30 centimeters long, and I got this plant at the end of November 2019, so I got him in November, and over time, particularly with the benefit of our warm Australian summers, he's just grown phenomenally. This guy is a houseplant just because I guess I have a backyard where he's spent most of his time. He's just grown to such a big size. Now, of course, if you are planning to keep him as a houseplant, he's not going to necessarily get to this size, so rest assured you are going to be able to keep him as a houseplant. Guys, he is the best grower I've got out of all my plants. He's such a robust plant. There's not really anything exceptional that I do from a care point of view to help him get to this size. So I think that is a good sign for everyone who is considering beginner's houseplant. An Epipremnum Pinnatum would be a great plant to start with. It's got these beautiful glossy leaves, green leaves, and it's got these little veins that run through it. Some of these plants also feature some spots on their leaves which are not related to pests, but my plant, it doesn't have many of these spots. These plants are also quite readily available at commercial nurseries, which makes them a very accessible houseplant as well. So I got my plant in a very popular Australian hardware store called Bunnings, which also does plants, and he's also very affordable. I think when I got him, I paid $13 for him, which is quite cheap for a plant. And when I got him, he probably had about 3 leaves to him, but I guess over a period of 6 months or so, he's just been able to grow amazingly. So the Epipremnum is native to northern parts of Australia, Malaysia, Indonesia, and parts of Singapore. It is a aroid, so it's a member of the aroid family, and it is a climber. So this plant in its natural habitat would like to climb either up on other trees or across a rainforest floor. This plant, actually, when I was doing my research, apparently the common name for it is also a monstera. So I guess this plant does get mixed up as a monstera, and I can kind of see why its leaves, they're very similar in their sheen, in their glossiness, and probably also the shape. Its juvenile leaves start off with no fenestrations, so those are the cuts in its leaves. They look like quite nice oval shapes, but over time, as the plant matures, it starts to split along the lobes, creating that dragon's tail effect. And it's quite beautiful. It's quite a beautiful leaf shape. This fruit is also edible, much like the monstera. However, the plant itself is actually toxic to animals. Having said that, when I was doing some research, I also came across the fact that this plant can be used to make teas, which I thought was interesting because if you eat the plant, it's toxic, but if you make some tea out of it, that tea apparently can be used to treat arthritis. So guys, I guess getting into the care tips right now, this plant, as I said, is a rainforest dweller. He likes quite warm, humid environments, going to get the benefit of the rainforest canopy providing that shade. So when you think about lighting for this guy would like some dappled lighting, so bright indirect light. He can also tolerate a lot more shade, which makes him a great candidate for a houseplant. The best lighting conditions is giving him some indirect light, but if you have an environment that has a little bit more shade, he's going to do quite fine there. Also, as a rainforest plant, you don't want to keep him in the direct light, because what that will do is it will actually burn his leaves. And I think I've got an example of leaf burn to show. Keep that in mind when you think about lighting. Also, as a climber, this plant is going to tend to climb towards where there's more light. So have a think about it, particularly how you want your plant to look. In terms of temperatures, the ideal temperatures for this plant is between 18 to 25 degrees Celsius, but this guy can tolerate colder temperatures, and you probably already know I keep a lot of my plants outdoors, and that includes over winter. Although having said that, this will be the first winter this plant is going to be experiencing with me. Now, the plant I have is quite a mature specimen, so I'm not too worried about him. But if you have a younger plant, I would just be mindful not to keep him in temperatures below 10 degrees. So bring him in if you've got a juvenile plant. But as an established plant, I think he's going to do alright outdoors. In terms of being too hot, this plant, as long as you keep him hydrated, particularly over the summer, he's not going to dry out too much, which is another reason why he's such a tolerant plant. In terms of watering, I watered this plant by saturating the pot a couple of times, and I do that now because he's actually gotten to quite a big size, so I think he needs a little bit more water. But what you want to do is you want to water your plant until you see the water drain through from the bottom. In summer, I watered him probably once every 3 days because 1, it was getting quite hot, and 2, he was just growing so much. So that was the reason why I just watered him a lot more. In winter, I do wait until the soil dries out before I water him, although guys, if you don't have a strict watering schedule, I wouldn't be too worried about this plant. The only thing is, guys, you don't want this guy to be sitting in water, so if you are keeping him in a pot where there's a saucer, I'll just be mindful to drain that saucer out every so often because he doesn't like to be kept in quite soggy soil. In terms of fertilizing for this plant, the only thing I know at the beginning I said I didn't do anything exceptional when I was caring for this guy. The only thing I'd say I did a lot was I actually fertilized him once a week using half-strength liquid fertilizer, which I think he enjoyed because he just grew so much. So if you are keen to help your plant grow, I recommend fertilizing him once a week during the growing months, so in spring and summer. I don't fertilize him during winter because I thought I'd give him a break, and he should enjoy that quite a lot. I also put some eggshells in the pot, and the reason for that is, one, not only does it keep caterpillars away, although this guy is quite pest free, but also from a rooting perspective, the calcium in the eggshells actually help facilitate growing stronger roots. And I thought the reason why I just thought I'd give some eggshells for this guy is because I feel like he'll need quite a strong root structure to support the size of him. From a soil perspective, I use a typical aroid mix, so a combination of orchid bark, some potting mix and some perlite. Whilst it is important to have a well-draining soil mix, if you find yourself short in perlite or orchid bark, I wouldn't be too worried. This guy, as I've said before, he's quite a tolerant plant, so he doesn't need as well-draining soil as some of your other more sensitive plants. In terms of pests for this guy, it's relatively pest-free. I would say the only thing to keep in mind is plant developing bacterial or fungal rot, and that happens where it's kept in too moist of a condition, so there's either not enough aeration or you're overwatering him. Some of the symptoms, or where there's bacterial or fungal rot, is when you start to see some black spots form on your plant. Oh yeah, and yellow spots as well. This guy is also relatively caterpillar free, which is great because I kept my plant outside. Caterpillars don't really eat this guy, so that's a bonus for me. In terms of maintenance for this plant, wherever I see some old yellowing leaves, I will chop them off because that also helps in promoting healthier plant growth as well as detracting any pests from wanting to come into this plant. And another maintenance tip I do is for my leaves, I do every now and then wipe them with like a wet towel, just so it promotes a more glossier sheen. I don't use any leaf shine or that type of product because I don't really believe in them. I just think as long as you keep your plant happy and healthy, it will glow from within. Just like people, as I said, is a climber, so to the extent that you give him something to climb on, he's going to grow quite quickly. Or in my instance, if you give him space, he'll definitely take advantage of that. And so because I keep my plant growing under the veranda, how he's growing, he's just really spread across the floor of the veranda. Once he grows in a certain way, it's very hard to bend him or change the direction of the growth. And an example is I've let this guy really just run along the ground, and so his stems here are actually quite stiff. So if I'd wanted to trail him up around for example, a moss pole, that is probably something I'm not able to do anymore, just because this plant is actually quite thick now. So if you want to have him trail up a moss pole or grow around a moss pole, I recommend doing that when your plant is younger, because that's just going to help guide how you want your plant to grow or the direction of its growth. This plant also puts out aerial roots, and it's at the aerial roots, or these nodes, where you can propagate this plant using stem cutting. So the rule of thumb is when you propagate, always include the node with the stem and the leaf, because that will give the best chance for your stem cutting to grow. And what you can do is you can propagate this guy in sphagnum moss or in water. Another way to facilitate growth is, as this plant shoots out aerial roots, to the extent that you're able to give your plant access to nutrients through those roots, so you might be wrapping him around a sphagnum pole, that's another way to help this guy grow. Over time, if those aerial roots decide that they're not getting access to any nutrients, so for example, I keep this guy under the veranda, it's tiled, so the opportunity for its aerial roots to find some sort of nutrients is very slim. What happens is that those aerial roots will then die off. In terms of repotting for this plant, my plant is a good example of the urgency to repot him. I haven't done it because I've been debating whether, because it's winter, is it too risky to repot my plants. But guys, my Epipremnum is definitely due for a repot. You can really see his roots coming to the surface of the pot, which is way past the repotting date. So this guy would like a bit of space, so I will have to repot him quite soon. If you don't repot your plant, what happens is that it stunts your plant's growth. So if you are trying to encourage that growth, just be aware that the more root bound your plant is, the slower it will grow. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. I realized I don't know why I haven't done a video on my Epipremnum before, because he's one of my biggest plants. And but I thought, you know guys, it's never too late to show everyone. Hope you enjoyed this video. You can definitely see why this plant is called a dragon's tail. But this guy is a very rewarding plant to have. He can be a very impressive plant, definitely a conversation starter, because he can get to quite big size. Super easy, super tolerant, guys. If you have any questions on how to care for your Epipremnum Pinnatum, please let me know by dropping a comment below or sending me a DM on my Instagram at JessiePotPlants, and I'll be sure to answer. But thank you so much for watching, guys, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye!